Hello and welcome to another Flightgear video. Today I want to show you how to start up and how to operate a helicopter. Probably the most sophisticated model in Flightgear is the Eurocopter 135, so this is the model I chose. But it is a little touchy when it reacts to control inputs. But it is definitely worth a try. There are other helicopters which are easier to handle, but once you get the hang on it, it is a very nice helicopter, and then you can control it very precisely. So let's get into the startup procedure. First of all, unlike planes, you might already know, pushing down the thrust lever means idle thrust. So everything is reverse in terms of engine speed. So you push the thrust lever forward and then you're on idle thrust. So for this model there is no auto start, so you have to start it up manually, and I want to show you how it is done. First of all, you turn on the master switch to get electrical power. You see the engine temperatures, they are just like the outside temperature, 29 degrees. So also there is no engine thrust yet. So what you have to do, you have to go to the overhead panel and first activate the primer for engine 1. You have two turbines here. We are starting with turbine number 1. So we activate the primer for turbine number 1. And then we start up turbine number 1. Let's give you a little bit more noise background. Maybe like this. But as you will see, so the turbine number 1, it will not fire up to its full capacity. It stops at around 74%. So there is a second procedure that we have to perform to get to full engine power for number 1. So now we're on an intermediate level, and that's all we get for the moment. Now we go to turbine number 2. We activate the primer for number 2. And we do the same thing for turbine number 2. We flip up this switch and then start turbine number 2, and you see it comes alive here on the right side of your engine display. So we will also rev it up to 74% of its full capacity. In the meantime, we can already deactivate the rotor brake. We fold up the rotor brake. Okay, now they are both stable at 74%. That's all we get for the moment. So deactivate primer 2, and now we prepare to go to full capacity. So we flip up those two switches here beside the primer switches, and these we will keep activated all the time. And now you can flip up those two yellow switches fully up. This one and this one as well. And then you can see, and now you can see we're adding more power until we're up to 100%, and then we're ready to fly. Now we're ready. So let's zoom out completely. You can use the rudder to turn around your vertical axis. And still the thrust is to idle thrust. I suggest that you pull up the thrust lever very gently, because if you pull it up abruptly, you are adding a lot of torque to your rotor, and the whole helicopter can start spinning. It can start yawing around your vertical axis. So pull up the thrust lever very gently, step by step. And at the same time, you should stabilize your helicopter with the rudder pedals here. You see it here at those feet. I'm using the rudder pedals. And if you want to stabilize, once you're up in the air, I suggest that you push your stick, the rudder stick, forward to make the helicopter fly forward. That will stabilize the helicopter a lot. It flies a little bit like a badly trimmed Cessna plane then, if you do that. So I'm adding 20% of thrust to the engines, and that should generate already some lift. And I'm using the rudder pedals to keep the helicopter aligned with the runway. So the plan is to fly along this runway and to do a little flyover over the Munich airport. And once we have mastered this first exercise, I will turn to the south to fly to Munich downtown, and we will try to land on a skyscraper. So as I'm adding up to 50% thrust, the whole thing is getting shaky already. So I have to use the rudder to stabilize it. And try to move forward. Even more thrust, and I try to move it forward now to get the whole thing going. I want to fly forward along this runway here. So you see, I'm still on beginner level. I'm quite a noob still with helicopter flying, but at least I get this helicopter up in the air and I manage to fly it along a simple path. So I fly along the runway and I activate the standard Flightgear HUD because the instruments are difficult to read for me at the moment, but I want to know how fast I am, especially how fast I'm going, because this is something we will need in the end when we're approaching that skyscraper in Munich downtown. You need to approach it very slowly with maybe 10 or 20 knots only, and for that it is hard to judge without a speedometer, so that's why I'm using the HUD. So now we're flying straight ahead, quite stable. Now once you're up in the air, it's not so hard to maneuver. We're now eastbound. Once we're at the end of this runway, I will turn to the left to get to the other runway, and then we will fly along the other runway. I will show you how to fly, how to cut a corner with this. First you bank to the left, and then you can use the rudder to do a sharp left turn. But remember always to bank to the side where you want to go. That helps you a lot to fly in a stable curve. So now I pitch down the nose, and that accelerates the helicopter. I suggest that you zoom out completely here. That gives you a better overview of your surroundings. It makes the helicopter much easier to handle if you zoom out completely in the pilot's view. So, we're flying along. I do the same simple maneuver again. Bank to the left and use the rudder and do a sharp left turn. And then align more or less with that runway. So we're now westbound. Let's fly along that runway. To the west. That's also where the Munich motorway is. And then we will turn south to be heading for Munich downtown. If you have never been to Munich, you will see the BMW headquarters. There, this building from BMW. It's nicely modeled. Also, the so-called BMW World, where you can pick up your car once you bought a BMW. And there's another skyscraper. It is rented by O2, and we will try to land on the roof of that skyscraper, which is just next to the BMW headquarters. So now we're southbound. And all we do now is just flying straight ahead for maybe 10 miles until we see some of the silhouette of Munich downtown. So I bank to the right a little. So now, as we have picked up some speed, the helicopter is quite easy to handle. It, as I told you, it's like flying a badly trimmed propeller plane. This antenna that you see, it belongs to Bavarian Radio. So we will pass it by. It's a high steel construction. And if we follow this heading southwest, more or less, sooner or later we will see this Munich skyline with the different skyscrapers. Munich is not exactly known for a lot of skyscrapers like Frankfurt with all the banks there, but at least in the north there are some of them, and one of them has a flat top and we can attempt a landing on it. I cannot promise that it will be successful, but we will give it a try. So we're passing this radio antenna and just keep the same heading, southwest. This river must be the Isar River. Let's have a look from outside. Our helicopter, it's yellow. So it's easier to have the pilot's view than, at least for me, it's easier to handle the helicopter from the pilot's view instead of the outside view. One of the little villages on our way to Munich. You see, starting and landing is quite tricky with this helicopter, but once in flight it is easy to handle. Anyone can do it without much practice. Just keep it moving. Hovering, I think to hover in one place is with this helicopter. It is not exactly easy, but I found it is easier than using other helicopters in Flightgear, like for example the Alouette. The French Alouette is modeled in a totally different way. It has an auto start option and you can very easily start and land it, but therefore hovering it and keep it in a stable position in the air is much harder than with this Eurocopter 135. So depending on what you want to achieve, the Alouette and this helicopter, they have different strengths and weaknesses. I really wonder sometimes if flying a real Eurocopter 135 is as shaky and as difficult as this model here in Flightgear, or if it's just due to my mediocre skills in flying, that I just don't have the sense of balance that I need to have. Because when I see them in the air, it's quite frequently here in the Munich area, then I see that they are flying perfectly stable, they can land on any point without any problem. So for me it is still quite difficult to land this helicopter on a rooftop or on a mountain top or on a aircraft carrier. That's still quite a challenge for me. So there you can see those parts of the Munich skyline which are modeled in Flightgear. On the left, this stubby little tower, that's the BMW headquarters. That tall needle behind it, it's the TV tower. Now we have a lag. Okay, recovered from it. So we will just fly once around the BMW tower and the BMW world so that you get a glimpse of that. On the other side of that, on that road, there is the TV tower, and that's part of the Olympic area there. But the Olympic Stadium is not modeled in Flightgear. So there are some BMW factories below. I can already start closing the throttle a little to just 2/3 now to slow down, because once we approach the skyscraper, and it's the one, this blue one on the right, that's where we will try to land. You have to be much slower. You approach it very, very slowly if you want to really hit that roof without damaging the heli. So what you see straight ahead of us, the BMW, they call it the 4-cylinder. It's easy to figure out why they call it this. And below that this flat building, that is the BMW World, where you, for example, you can pick up your car if you bought a BMW in a little ceremony. So BMW. This is the TV tower. And let's bank and turn. Turn, turn, turn. Here you can have a nice look from above on the BMW building. Let's not hit it. Let's turn away. And now we're heading for our primary goal, and this is this blue skyscraper over there. So now is the time when we really need the HUD, because we have to slow down. We have to get the altitude right, and we have to be very slow for the final meters to jump on that flat roof. And that's what we try to achieve now. So we are still approaching, we are now slow enough. The throttle is now too low. I have to add more throttle, not to go down too steep. So, and from now on we will just carefully approach that tower, because we don't want to hit it. We want to get a little bit above the roof, but just slightly above, and we do not want to drop this helicopter on the rooftop, because it would damage the rotor. We want to try to get this done in a very careful and gentle way. So we approach it slowly. The altitude is more or less okay now. We are just above the roof line. So let's take away some of the throttle. Okay. So far it looks quite okay. I've had worse tries here. I also had some crashes. Let's not crash today. Not while we're showing this on YouTube. Okay, so I messed up the throttle management. I have to bank a little to the left because the helicopter tries to drift away. So that's playing with all kinds of inputs. I'm playing now with the throttle, I'm playing with the rudder, I'm playing with the ailerons, so with a roll movement. I have to get higher, I'm too low. I have to get above the ceiling, but only slightly above. So I have to add more throttle, but not too much. And still always have to keep the building in view. You see, for me it's still quite messy. Patience is key here. Don't get impatient. If you mess up the approach completely, do a go around and try again. Don't rush things here. It will lead to a crash otherwise. So I messed up the throttle again, try to get away from the skyscraper again, and do another attempt. Give it another try. Okay, let's have a look from outside. Well, it's far from perfect, but we got the job done. So I could try to hover to the middle of that skyscraper, but I don't want to screw it up now. So I will just deactivate the rotor now, because that's good enough for now for the live demo. Deactivate the HUD. And now we can just shut down the rotors by flipping down those two yellow main switches. So let's activate the rotor brake. So, not a beautiful landing, but a successful landing. So you can see we're on that rooftop, and you can see the BMW and the TV tower in Munich. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this little video. I hope it was fun for you. See you again for another Flightgear video next time. Goodbye.